Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kayla. Thanks for stopping by. And in today's video, I have a delicious pumpkin pie recipe that is gluten-free, grain-free, dairy-free, paleo-friendly, and even fairly low carb. Now, of course, growing up in the deep south, I'm originally from Mississippi, if you couldn't tell by the accent. I now live in Texas. Pies are, of course, a part of the traditional Southern culture, so they are literally every family event, whether it's a family reunion, Thanksgiving, Christmas, there's always pies. And I loved pies growing up, but once I found out that I was allergic to gluten, I knew I would have to come up with a delicious alternative. And that's exactly what I've done today with my pumpkin pie. Now, last year for Thanksgiving, I made a gluten-free pecan pie. So if you haven't checked that recipe out yet, I will link it for you in the description box below. But without further ado, let's jump right in. So we're gonna start by adding grass-fed ghee to a mixing bowl. Now, of course, you can use grass-fed butter as well. And I haven't tried it with coconut oil yet, but I'm pretty sure it'll work with coconut oil as well. Then we're gonna add 1 egg. Then we're gonna go ahead and mix that up until it's fully combined. And also, while I'm mixing this, I wanna mention that you want your butter or your ghee or your coconut oil, whatever you're using, to be pretty softened, so that way it's easier to mix, okay? Once you've mixed that, we're gonna go ahead and add in the almond flour. Now, this is finely ground almond flour, and I like to use the almond flour instead of almond meal because it has a finer texture, okay? And so it's gonna, taste and have the texture more like an actual pie crust instead of the almond meal, which is a little bit more gritty. So go ahead and add that, mix it up pretty well. And now I'm gonna add a low carb sweetener. Now I am using birch xylitol in powdered form. And all I did for this is I added the granules to a coffee grinder and grinded it up, and it turns it into a powdered form. So it's more like powdered sugar consistency instead of granulated sugar. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and add that. Just go ahead and keep on mixing. It's gonna be very thick, which is a good thing. Oh, and I almost forgot, you also want to add a pinch of sea salt or Himalayan rock salt. Okay, go ahead and mix that up a little bit more. And now we're just going to go ahead and form the pie crust. So all you want to do is grab this almond flour crust right here. We're gonna sort of form it into a ball, just to sort of smooth out the edges. And once the edges are pretty smooth, you're just gonna press this into the pie dish, like so. You're just gonna continue to press all the way up the sides of the pie dish. Now, of course, you can go all the way up the sides. You can go just to where I'm going right here and stop right there. It's completely up to you. And then what I like to do, if there's little holes in the center, just sort of take the extra that's around the edges and use that to patch up any holes that are in the center of the pie. What I like about this almond flour crust is that it's very movable, meaning that, if you find that in the center there's little holes or whatever, you can always take any excess around the edges and just patch it right up. And so now I'm just gonna kind of smooth the edges a little bit, just to make it pretty. Now, before we actually bake the pie crust, one last thing that I like to do is this. So you're gonna take an egg, and you're going to separate the egg white from the egg yolk. Simply whisk the egg yolk a little bit. Then I'm going to brush the crust with the egg yolk. Make sure you get all along the edges. Okay, so now we're gonna bake the crust at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 15 to 20 minutes. And while the crust is baking, we're gonna go ahead and prep our pumpkin pie filling. So we're gonna begin by adding 2 eggs to a mixing bowl. Next, we're gonna add a whole can of organic pumpkin puree. Next up, we're gonna add full-fat coconut milk. This is the coconut milk that you get from the can. Make sure it is full fat. Then we're gonna add some granulated low-carb sweetener. I am using birch xylitol again. We're gonna go ahead and add in some pumpkin pie spice. Love the way that smells. Then some organic vanilla extract. and of course a pinch of sea salt or Himalayan rock salt. We're gonna go ahead and give this a good mix. Of course, you can always use a hand whisk to mix it up as well. But now we're just playing the waiting game. We're waiting for our crust to finish, and then we're gonna add our filling to our crust and bake it for a little bit longer. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, so now that the crust is done, and by the way, you can look at it and see how delicious it looks, we are going to add our filling. So you're literally just gonna pour the filling into the pie crust. Now at this point, if you want to add like a pie shield to protect the pie crust from burning around the edges, then feel free to do so at this point. You can also, if you don't have a pie shield, then of course you can also use foil. And in my gluten-free pecan pie recipe, that's actually what I used. So you can sort of see how I did that in that video. But I found this at Bed Bath & Beyond and thought it was pretty cool. Okay, so now that we have the pie shield on, we're gonna lower the temperature of the oven to 325 degrees, and we're gonna bake the pie for another 35 to 45 minutes. All right, it's time to give it a taste test. Now, I did want to mention that before you serve your pie, you do want to let it cool for about 30 minutes to an hour to let it set. All right, let's jump right in. So good. Wow. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. It helps out a lot. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, hit that subscribe button below for more healthy recipes and content. And until then, I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.